Okay, it is 6 o'clock. My name is Patty Richards, and I'm going to call the regular Town of Underhill Select Board meeting to order for this Thursday, October 24th, 2024 at 6 p.m. First item on our agenda is, are there adjustments to the agenda? The only adjustment that I have is we're going to add an executive session before we adjourn. Let's add it after, not numbered, after review and approve. Well, let's add it right after closing public comment. Add it in there.
Well, actually, it would go better after member items, correspondence, etc. So we can.
Okay. Yep.
Close it out.
We want to
All right,
approve
got
the
it.
warrants before we.
All right, we'll add it just after member items. And we don't have to reference that right now. Are there any other agenda changes?
I have none.
No. Okay. That would be the only agenda change, and that will now move to opening public comment. Are there members from the public that would like to comment? We have a full gallery here. That's it. Anybody online that would like to engage in public comment?
They're all our people.
Hmm?
They're all our people.
Okay.
Donna and Mont Mansfield. It's the only people here.
Okay, so no public comment. Let's now move to ARPA funds, the Energy Committee solar proposal.
I figured that would be me.
Mhm.
Thanks. Thank you all for having us in. We need to kind of get some direction, I think, and figure out exactly how we're going to deal with our latest set of circumstances. My name is Michael Oman. I chair the Energy Committee, and I was also on the ARPA Committee and that sort of thing. I'll be brief. We've been kind of around the barn a few times on trying to get the solar PV, the project going for Town Hall. We started out with the ARPA project. We got some, I wouldn't say bids, but estimates in for doing ground mount out there. We began to look at that, and Sun Common we got two bids. We got one from Sun Common, we got one from, I believe it was Green Mountain Solar. Those were the only two that we got. They were both very close. We ultimately selected Sun Common. It was a slightly better value per unit kilowatt that we would be getting the output, and that was the basis. That was the only basis for making that decision. Sun Common then worked with helping us to get some preliminary designs. We came up with 3 alternatives for doing ground mount out here. There were problems with pretty much each of those. There are setback problems, septic problems, and the trees and that sort of thing. So we started looking for a couple of other options. Meanwhile, one of our members is in fact an employee of Sun Common, and he's been trying to work very carefully. He's been way more help than, he's really, he and Sun Common have helped us a lot basically on a pro bono basis here. So Sun Common came out and they did installation measurements, completely free in terms of how we would be able to do this thing, so on and so forth. At that time, he said, well, they have this other option available, which was a freestanding, I would call it a shed, they call it a canopy. It's a very attractive structure that they had available. We started thinking about how that might be applicable and get around some of our ground mount problems. Someone also suggested that there's the possibility of actually doubling the value of that and installing it in Moore Park as opposed to Town Hall and still being able to do the takeoff here. We began looking into that. It soon became apparent that the Moore family had become interested in doing a pavilion of their own in Moore Park. And so everybody said, wow, this is great. Dovetail these two projects together. At the time, there was a prospective design for a pavilion that looked similar to what's down at kind of the Riverside Park, only much smaller. The rec committee was actually handling that. Brad and Seth and I actually got out in Moore Park and kind of went so far as to figure out how we might make this thing work and so on and so forth. Went as far as staking it out, and at that point we kind of handed it off to the rec committee to work with the Moore family to get what they needed to make this thing work. Working with Graham, we could mount the solar panels on the roof more or less with what they did. I thought we could make some minor dimensional adjustments if we needed to. So that said, that was kind of, and we worked back and forth with some of the rec committee over the summer, finally, we got a meeting with the Moore family about 2 weeks ago, and they determined that they didn't want anything to do with it. They wanted a whole separate way of doing things, which could be very beautiful, wonderful, but nonetheless, it would not be suitable for use as the solar arrangement. That is what they were looking for at this time. So we're kind of thrown back, maybe not quite to square one, but certainly we're not well along at this point. Now, in the process of doing this, we did have this canopy option available to us, and we also looked briefly at a roof mount on the town hall. At that time, we determined that nobody can quite figure out or remember why exactly the roof mount was not more actively pursued at the time, but so we've now resurrected the possibility of a roof mount. It is not an ideal orientation. That may have been the entirety of the rationale of it. It's kind of a west-southwest orientation. Graham has estimated we might lose up to 20% of the potential output associated with that if we went with that orientation. So we pulled together that, put together the two options that we passed out in the brief outline that the sort of short write-up that we sent around to you guys. I would say that the canopy option, Graham has done some further investigating on that. The canopy that was on offer at that time is no longer on offer. There's a slightly larger, higher capacity. It's about the same size one, but it would cost significantly more instead of the 50. Well, not hugely, but so I think we had estimated what we had was 58,360, and the current amount that Graham is suggesting is the 64,500. So that the new number would be 64,500. He also pointed out, and one thing that we had not raised is that we believe that the town would in fact be eligible for the 30% federal tax rebate associated with it. So there may be, we could get 30% off. There seems to be, everybody seems to think that would be a realistic possibility. However, the solar group of the Energy Committee has met, and we felt that we could recommend in better conscience the roof mount arrangement, and it can be done within the budget that we have. It also provides for easier hookup. According to Graham, we need to hook it up on outboard of our switch off panel that I guess is going to be on this northwest corner of Town Hall. So we would need to get to this part of Town Hall. So that would make wiring it in a good deal easier and more straightforward. So we thought that we could in good conscience recommend that to you folks. We would like your thoughts, and we will proceed with the information we need to get this whole thing online and hopefully make it work.
Okay, thank you very much. That was a terrific summary of where we've been and where we're at. Jen, do you recall how much we've allocated for this project in the ARPA dollars?
49,560.
Thank you.
So I think that was in the original. However, what I see when I look at our most recent, it is, I don't see it at all. Under Energy Committee, I see 48,000 for the generators. I don't see any additional money on the summary. So that amount of money that you decide to spend would come out of whatever we have left, the 344.
Whatever we have left of the total ARPA fund?
Yeah, 344, 445. So of that, we have 175,000 that you originally wanted to spend on the town hall upgrades. And then there was, the remaining amount was to go in the sidewalk. So it would come out of what I would assume you'd want it to come out of what would be that last kind of bit that was, anything that wasn't allocated was going to go to the sidewalk. So it would come out of that 155, 445.
So essentially it would come out of the sidewalk project.
Yeah. And I also met with them when they were here, the solar people, and the reason that they couldn't do it on the roof and they didn't recommend it was because there was, I feel like it was like 3-foot setbacks, but I don't remember the exact number and I can check my notes. But the reason that they did not recommend it for the roof here was because it was like, it had to be through, and I think it was because it's a commercial building. You don't have the same setbacks as far as how much of the rooftop the panels can take up. And I believe it was like it had to have a 3-foot setback on each side, and there was no way that they felt that they could get the number of panels we needed in order for it to be useful and functional on the roof. That was why we then met with them to talk about the ground mount. That was why we jumped right off the roof onto the ground.
That seems like what I remember too, was the dimensions of the roof
Yeah.
didn't fit the panel sizes
Yeah.
that they were proposing.
Graham has suggested this layout. I don't,
Yeah,
you know, that we do have a layout that we believe would fulfill that need. So that, I mean, it seems like it would be worth at least finding out.
Mhm. So this layout is in our board packets at the bottom of your first page, the summary.
Yes, that's correct. That was one that Graham put together for us.
Okay.
Alright.
so he's thinking the roof is 40, or the building is 41.5 feet wide, long.
Yeah, I think we took that off of a Google map thing or something like that, Google Earth.
And-
It wasn't surveyed.
And this would be on the west roof?
It's
Which
south roof.
pitch?
It's south pitch here.
Yeah,
So if I'm looking at
a
this-
So the
south.
building
pitch.
rate, as we sit, the building rooftop
So
is
this
here.
building faces due north. So it's a
Right.
north-south orientation.
Mm-hmm.
So and the roof goes like this
Right.
for the old part, and then the new part is like this. So that would be the south, I'm assuming.
No,
Just the
right.
You're talking about this roof?
No,
here?
we're talking about this roof here.
Oh, that roof there, the
Right.
big roof.
The big roof.
Oh, okay, we did not look
We
at
didn't look
that.
at that.
We were looking at the
It wasn't
south
facing
roof.
south.
Okay, right, yeah.
Yeah.
So this is
The west,
really
southwest
facing
roof, right.
west.
West, southwest, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Got it.
So
So
we-
Graham might think that the big group would be on the table?
he believes so, yes, and we would reduce by about 20%.
The
And-
trees are right there. Those
Well, the
big-
trees are actually north of the azimuth. I mean, we were looking at that, and the trees are actually north of certainly the dew.
There's some big spruces.
Right, there are some
that
big
size.
spruces out there, but they're north of the roof line a little bit, so, there was,
Okay, so that's a different roof than what
yes,
we're
Okay.
talking about.
yes.
So that I can understand the picture of the town hall building that's in our packet, can somebody identify exactly what roof pitch we're
The
looking at?
farthest to the left. If you look at the picture, this one right here.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. That's helpful.
Just so that we're
Okay,
clear.
I was on the same page.
That one,
This
Got
one
it.
above our head,
Perfect.
this one right here.
right above our head.
So the first question I want to throw out to our group is there concern of taking money away from the sidewalk project and allocating it toward solar here on the building?
We have money for the solar, correct?
So what Jen just said,
Solar was allocated by the ARPA committee.
Right.
Now, when the board said they wanted more information, I don't know, maybe the money got
We didn't,
folded back in somewhere or something, but I know that I was on the ARPA committee and we allocated 49, I think it was 560, based on the Suncommon estimate that they had provided at the time, and that was, it was voted by the ARPA committee, but the select board then said, we want more information
right.
before we go further
Right.
with this one project.
So
So
to
we've
be
been in
clear, Jen, you said that we have 344,000 left of ARPA dollars.
Correct.
And I'm looking at our packet, and there's a spreadsheet in our packet.
Yeah. So you
PDF.
see the 175 town hall and then that 155, 445 for sidewalk, it would come out of that.
Right, see the 175, and then 150, where am I?
I'm looking at the one on the online. Whatever, it was basically whatever hadn't been spent after the town hall upgrades was going to sidewalk, so that's what is represented there. And that was after the discussions here when the solar thing didn't happen, so I just I put it somewhere, that's where I put it.
Okay.
But you can
All right.
pull it out of there and use it, I mean,
So
It's the select board's
169,000
discretion.
is not spent, so it would come out of that pot, I would assume.
Yes.
And some of that money, we've talked about using it for the sidewalk project. So it would be,
I thought the sidewalk project had its own money.
The sidewalk never really had its own money. The sidewalk, what was said was, because it was the one that was unanimously the most, people had responded that they were interested in it. What the select board said is, whatever doesn't get spent on the other things, that's gonna be the balance of it. So what I've been doing is keeping a kind of ongoing balance of what hasn't been obligated or earmarked
Mhm.
is in that sidewalk. So that's where that's at. So
So
I'm sorry if solar didn't stay a separate item, but when it didn't happen here and it wasn't on the list, I didn't even know it was still even a consideration, quite honestly, so.
it's odd that it kind of worked against it because the sidewalk was kind of number one on everybody's list. But it was meant to gather funds that weren't used. As opposed to having its own funding because it's number one. I mean,
Well, everything else was already decided on, so the only thing that changed throughout the process, I think, was the solar thing that just didn't seem like it was gonna happen. So that got added back into that.
right.
okay, this is a trade-off situation. If we move forward, I don't want to send you on a wild goose chase and have you do more work that we're
Just
gonna.
wild geese.
Exactly. It's the right time of the year. If we want to use that money for the sidewalk. So.
Do we have a sense of what the cost of the sidewalk project is? I guess it just depends on like how much sidewalk we want
We
to
can
build.
do, right?
Right.
So that's kind of way we said we'd get the surveying and the engineering done,
Mhm.
to do from the bridge here up to maybe try to get to the school. I don't think we'll make it to the school, but if we could even connect Moore Park to the Historical Society, to the town pond, in my mind, that's a really good first goal.
Mhm.
And then if we can go any farther, that'd be great. But, going up the hill here towards the central school, is going to require some easements, some slope easements, some retaining walls.
Mhm.
It's going to be a little more
Well, that
pricey
would be a little pricey than just laying down.
versus preparing these flat runs
Yeah.
to the town pond. Now you've connected, in my mind, you've connected our facilities. You've got
Right.
Moore Park, you've got the town hall, the historical society, and then the pond.
Mhm.
You've connected all those together. And it seems like that would be a light years beyond what you've ever
But
had.
the question is, how much money,
We don't know. We don't know.
Yeah.
this is the hard thing.
It's gonna be more than $155,000, I can tell you that.
Well, that's not necessarily true. I've
But
gotten some
close.
prices. I do have some prices close. It's, so we would not, this isn't a federal project, right? So we did the flats. Federal projects are just, I wrote about it multiple times. They're ridiculous. And, we prepare Jericho's done it themselves. They had, suggesting to have a road crew do it, but they've done plenty of paved sidewalks in Jericho. But you prepare the surface. We've got good soils here. Prepare the surface properly. You hire the people to come in and pour the sidewalk. You just parse it out.
I'm not thinking about the retaining wall.
Oh, that's a different story. I agree with you there, yes.
Yeah,
But in order,
that slope up to the school would be pricey.
Yeah,
I
that's
do-
what and that, of course, is the most, that's the critical safety.
yeah, that's probably better to go after grant funding, so we're at the end of our scoping study meeting is gonna happen on November 7th. I'll talk about that later.
Right.
That's the final meeting. There's some estimates in there that'll curl your toes, so,
Jeez. Great.
it's,
Forward to.
but again, I think realistically, if you wanted to do something meaningful with the ARPA money, I think you could achieve something here.
Mhm.
With my thoughts. But we'll have a better handle, once an engineering's done, then you have a set of drawings and somebody can give you a price, have one person prep the surface. IMS or whoever comes in and pours the sidewalk for fixed lineal foot price.
So when will we have a better sense of price for the sidewalk? Within
Probably,
weeks?
No, probably during the winter sometime when the engineering's taking place. So we still haven't surveyed it yet. So
May I
Since-
that's gonna,
One other question?
Sure.
Because one of the things that we're up against is the December 31st obligation deadline for ARPA funds.
so that's what's on the agenda
Do
here.
we have a solution for that?
If there's a solution,
Yeah, there is a solution for that.
So
I've been hearing rumors of that, but I didn't know what it was.
I don't think that would just complicate the conversation, I think.
I mean, my recommendation for our group to discuss is let's get the pricing on the sidewalk, because the sidewalk was first and foremost on input from the town, from citizens of the town. That was like the first item on our list of what people wanted. I prefer to look at dollars for the sidewalk first, and then figure out what we have left over, and then figure out if that's enough to pursue some solar on top of the rooftop.
I mean, there were other options too, things like EV chargers and things like that that came along. We had hoped to have one thing I will say, even though the sidewalk was the top priority, the town hall solar was not the last priority.
Right.
So, it's not like it's falling off the bottom, as it were. It's like, this is kind of just because of a delay thing. The Energy Committee hopes very much that we can, with some small slice of the ARPA money, make a genuine contribution to town energy efficiency, or one of those kind of pieces. We spend a lot of money on upgrading the town hall service. We spend a lot of money on the generators, and we think that's really important. And that is climate resilience. But we would like to make at least some step toward, bring the town just, this much further along.
And that's not to say that you couldn't, use some of the ARPA money, and then we're coming into a new budget cycle, right?
We could
So-
put it-
That was
That's
gonna
good,
be a question
right?
of mine for next, of like,
So-
if it's something that can be, the town can vote on in terms of allocating town funds to supplement whatever's left from ARPA funds when we come to the next town meeting.
I think that's a good option as well,
Right,
That
'cause
would
that's another
certainly-
way for the town to continue to show support for this type of.
I think that's one of the most important things for us, is for the town to make a visible statement of moving us, down the road even a little bit. That, in fact, we thought, and when we were going with the more park structure, the idea was this had a high educational value, far higher educational value than power production value. So we thought that would help bring townspeople along and help that situation. So we're certainly open to other
Well, let's
considerations.
not forget about our Fairtown pit.
Absolutely.
Wow,
Although
we've got a huge
see that.
array there. I know no one sees it, unfortunately. We should
Promote that a lot.
promote that.
Yeah,
better.
exactly. Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah, I have a dual loyalty with that, because I really like the solar idea, but I don't want to jeopardize the sidewalk at all. And I don't really want to jeopardize either.
I'm a transportation guy, Dan.
And I'm thinking that, given that the solar, and if we do need some money in the budget, the solar is income generating in some sense.
True.
And that could be balanced as a part of the budget, I think, easier, than having the sidewalk start.
And Michael, my opinion on the solar is I think it's fabulous, especially on rooftops. It's, I had some concerns with the proposal of putting it out front, but on a rooftop, that makes perfect sense. And I really like this concept of putting it in the budget. So if you could give us a number that we could work on.
That was the 46,000. Graham's estimate was
Okay.
presumably good. I mean, that did not change, that we included in the piece. Obviously, to get a real bid quality estimate on it, we should get the provider in and have them,
Okay.
But I think that as a conceptualization number, that should be a good one.
Okay. Jen, can you add that to the budget list?
Got it.
Excellent.
So what would it be to have EV chargers by a commercial company? I mean, what cost would that be?
I think as I
top.
recall, they're a couple of thousand each. So if we were to add level 2 chargers, that could provide a very significant service in town, promote EV usage, be available for town employees and people visiting the
I
town.
think the original discussion we had was with the ground mounts, is that we would run a wire to the EV charger.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So maybe this rooftop solution could be, the only thing that a lot of us are not crazy about is putting an EV charger next to this old building.
Mhm.
And people say they don't catch fire. It's not true. The guy who's the guy that's head of the energy committee in the legislature, his EV charger caught fire in his yard. So
Really?
so I just, but there's some place for it, whether it's more park or maybe over here.
Mhm.
Well, I think it could be, I just charged my vehicle when I was doing some work at the library in Richmond. And they had the charge all commercial, a couple of them.
Where?
By the library, but it was away from the building. It was at the end of the parking lot.
Yeah.
Across was the town hall, across the other driveway. So it was a good distance from.
Yeah.
from
Pedestal mounts are more expensive, of course.
What?
Pedestal mount would be more expensive than a structure mount.
Right.
So that's one consideration as well.
Yeah, how does that work with the commercial? Do they install it or?
I haven't spent a lot of time looking at it. When we got our EV, GMP provided it and Chevy installed it. So we were happy about that. But
We had Green Mountain Power here. There were incentives for
yeah.
doing that as well. We could look back into that again.
Yeah, they have their own company, Blink, I think.
Yeah, we had several people.
Yeah, we
come
have prices, but that was a couple years ago.
out. Yeah.
Okay, so we have a path forward. We're gonna plan to budget it. We're gonna put it into this next year's budget.
Okay.
We will find out more if there are any ARPA dollars left over, and maybe some of the ARPA dollars could go.
Now, should we get requests, bids, so you'll have an actual?
As long as the bid can be viable until next fiscal year, which is July 1 of 2025.
Okay.
So ask for the bidders to bid based on that time frame.
Okay. We'll pursue that.
Okay,
Can be difficult.
very much so.
Well, we'll do what we can.
Thank you,
All right.
Michael.
Thank you very
Great,
much.
Thank you for all your work.
Well, we'll keep plugging.
Very concise, Michael, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, we're a little behind schedule.
That's all right.
Pleasant Valley Road, Bridge 7 update.
I can make this kind of quick. So I talked with Cricket again today. She was out in the area looking at the Mills River Park Bridge again, and she took a trip to Pleasant Valley and Bridge 7. She's just really concerned about it still. It's really deteriorating. I'm going to follow up. The game plan is I'm going to follow up with the state to see if they did do an inspection this year. We had it, so typically it's every 2 years. So in 22, we had an inspection.
Mhm.
But then when Bob was in the EOC up in Montpelier during the big flood of the summer of 23, he put in a request to have Bridge 7 inspected again.
Mhm.
Because we're getting a lot of traffic through here because Route 15 was closed. So we just kept getting pounded by trucks and all kinds of vehicles. So they inspected it again. I have that report.
And that was in 23.
23, July of 23. But so it's possible they may have skipped this year, which would be their biannual, but they may not have, and it just may not be online yet. So I'm going to follow up with them to get the report. She suggested that we pursue the bonding aspect that we talked about. She did try once. It's really hard. So construction estimates are hard to give, right? So an engineering estimate, really difficult. But she has some comparables to bridges. Prior to COVID, she kind of had a really good handle on what it was going to cost. But then things have just gone wacky. She did say, the 750 range would be a pretty reasonable estimate in her mind. So if we got the 200 from the structures grant, that would leave us 500 short. So we could potentially bond for the 500. So that's where we're at. She's going to join us next meeting to kind of give us an update. I'm going to see if I can get a hold of an inspection report.
Okay.
The problem is like last year, they were ready to give us the structures grant, but we didn't have our other funding in place, this is way different than they've operated ever before. They gave us a structures grant for Mountain Road in like the drop of a hat, and we weren't ready. That was going to cost extra money. But their rationale was that they just don't want the money sitting there. So when we apply for the structures grant, usually in like winter time, mid to late winter, and then we get the results usually in May, I think. And if you are awarded that grant, it's good for July 1. So it's really hard to be like shovel ready, right? So if we, our thought was, well, we get the structures grant and then we could pursue the bond. And lastly, I just want to say that Cricket had a experience with trying to put the project out to bid, but try to get prices for a year in advance, just like we talked about. Virtually nobody wanted to bid on it.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have to go with a construction estimate as best we can. She's gonna look at those numbers again. We'll reach out again to Bob Fletcher. Sherry and I did talk to him. It's kind of a confusing process, but anyway, that's kind of where we're at. But in your packet, I think one thing we should get started on are obtaining these temporary construction easements and applying for the 2 permits. One is a stream alteration permit with the state of Vermont with Chris Burnell, who I know quite well. The other is an Army Corps engineer's permit. So I guess my suggestion or my recommendation to you would be to authorize me to submit those 2 permits for the Army Corps and stream alterations. We think they're good for 5 years. They could be good for even longer than that, but probably a minimum of 5 years. Get those, and then Mike Weisel has volunteered to help, and we need to approach the 4 landowners that we need to get the easements from. So I used to do a lot of that work before, so I'm used to doing that. So between Mike and I think we can, if we at least meet with them on site, show them the area we're going to need, what it's going to entail, make sure they're on board. If they're on board, we can start drawing up the legal documents. So.
How long, in your experience, does it take for those permits to be?
We should have them this winter.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
And
We would have those in place before the bond vote goes up.
Exactly. If we could,
That's good, if we do as much as we can,
right.
Toward that end.
And if the inspection reports say it deteriorated, the rating deteriorated more, it's going to look better for us with the structures grant.
Is there a cost to file the permits?
Yeah.
A couple $100?
Yeah.
Something like that. Okay.
Whatever it is, we pay
Probably have
permits.
that in
We pay.
But it's good for 5 years once we have the permit.
So
I think it
get
makes
it done
sense.
now. It's Cricket's recommendation, and we need to approach the landowners now. So whatever it is, we pay permits all the time, stormwater stuff constantly, so.
So we'll know where the state is on its current inspection.
I'm gonna find that out, so
By
we'll
next meeting.
revisit this next meeting. Cricket will be here,
That sounds good.
and we can.
Do you want us to move on the permits today?
Yeah, just authorize me
Right.
to apply for the permit.
I'll make a motion that we authorize Brad to file an application for the Department of the Army permit.
Army
Also-
Corps of Engineers.
Just reading the title,
Oh, sorry.
Army Corps of Engineers. And a permit, an application form for coverage under the stream alteration general permit to the Watershed Management Division. 2
Right.
permits.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Aye. Any opposed? Ayes carry it 3-0.
And then you're good with us meeting with the landowners to
Yes.
get that going.
Yeah, I think it makes sense to start moving on
Absolutely.
that, and
Yep.
hopefully we hear that it's been in, that there's not like an emergency situation in terms of like needing to close the bridge or
That's what,
institute immediate repairs.
that's what Cricket's worried about, that we may have to turn it down to one lane. Might have to put stoplights on either side if the ratings dropped.
Mhm.
So she said she had a similar bridge this year with the state. It's been the same thing. She was very concerned about it. The state kept rating it as fair. Then all of a sudden one day, the bridge inspector says, enough's enough. This bridge is shut down. So it almost gets to that point, when is fair, not fair enough anymore,
Right.
And it's a hard judgment call. And the state's in a difficult position, we've got a lot of old 28 bridges here.
So what, the one lane bridge, doesn't seem like it would solve anything because nobody passes on
They
that
do.
bridge.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
People do?
totally,
Yeah.
I don't, but people do.
totally.
I mean, there's two vehicles on that bridge at the
It's
same
crazy.
time?
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Oh,
But sounds like we'll have more information on that
Next
next
They
meeting.
definitely do. See it all the time.
All right, so we're back on schedule if you want.
All right. That moves us to town highway updates.
Sure. When Brad asked me what I needed for the meeting, I told him I had a few updates I wanted to give, but he said that's under my updates, but then he added these other two things, so.
Well, those
They're
are
just,
other,
I just want to say there's a couple other things to go along with this,
Okay.
just quick updates.
Okay.
14 Daudelin Road, we have a resident there that would like to install a sap line across overhead Daudelin Road. And I know where this location is, and I don't see an issue with it as long as it's the right height going across the road. We have several other places in town that sap lines go across the road and no different than a power line or anything like that. So if we want to have some discussion, we can. Don't have an issue.
What is the road clearance requirement?
I'd like 14 feet.
And any issues with the electric line?
I don't believe so.
no, it's in the memo, so they.
He said that he
With
has
Green Mountain Power.
approval. Do we need a copy of that approval just to, I don't know, that was my only question of whether that's,
We can get a copy of that.
okay.
Are you the gentleman with the, okay, so we have
well, why don't
the.
you come up here, introduce yourself and where you live and
Yeah, hi, Eric Price, 14 Daudelin Road. So,
Met your wife a couple times during the tree. cutting.
yes, thank you for taking care of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we just wanted to put a sap line across. I have a barn on the north side and the sugar wood's on the south side of the road, so. The current lines I just measured them tonight, they're about 14.8. So I'd probably just go right under that line, just to,
The
13.
power lines or
it's the phone and cable.
phone and
actually.
cable, got it.
The
Got it.
power company just raised the power lines last
Okay.
year. When we put the barn in, they actually raised poles. And that all went up higher, but phone and cable was still low.
So they'd be right near the cable and phone lines, is what you're saying? So that's good for gravel spreading or anything like that?
Yeah.
So,
So trucks can, like any large
Yep.
semi trucks that would go through, I mean, not that, this is a dirt road.
13.6 is our limit.
This is a dirt road, right?
Yeah, but 13.6 is our
we don't have
limit.
18-wheelers going.
Things have to be higher than
If it's a moving
13.6.
truck, that's what I'm thinking.
So all
We're not
bridges,
clear.
all bridges are 13.6 on state highways
Okay.
and stuff, so 14 feet would
14
be
would be good.
plenty.
Okay, all right. And this is not a well-traveled road, so there's no
There's only 3 other
aesthetic
houses.
issues or anything of that nature?
So just to let you know, we've got sap lines all over this town. They are, if you don't see them, they're usually pretty high, but they're all over the road. They're on Irish Settlement. I don't think there's any on Pleasant Valley, but
I don't know. if anyone
no,
knows about
but
it.
there's a few on Irish, few on
what about all over?
Page Road. Well, they're around.
But there's some around, but
Yeah.
they don't, it's good.
Okay,
Yeah.
We have
wouldn't
no
have an
town
issue with it.
regulations for it or anything.
No, he's attaching on, you're attaching onto the phone, right? And you're going
I'm
underneath.
going under the phone. Yep.
So the phone line's in the road, you look at the phone.
Right,
so
exactly.
no different. The only thing I would recommend is you can have Eric fill out an access permit. And the condition that I would put on the access permit would be that it's a minimum of 14 feet high.
That makes sense.
Do it.
That makes sense.
That works for you?
Yeah.
Any other issues? You're in
These
support?
folks have been great too with us working up there and offering the yard to park equipment. They've been very good.
It's easy enough.
Yeah, that makes total sense to me, as long as you're going through the access permit.
Yep.
Mhm.
Do we need action on this?
I would move to approve. We don't have the permit, we have a
Approve the request.
approve the request.
Okay.
With a condition that it's a minimum of 14 feet clearance.
And a minimum condition that you apply for the permit.
Right.
So under those conditions,
Authorize me to sign the permit.
so moved, with all those conditions.
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? You guys carried 3-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Downs Road?
So Downs Road, Mr. Butler is here. So he was here at the last meeting to get permission to do some work on the class 4 section. And he did send I'm guessing it's probably in your package.
Yes.
Mhm.
Which looked good to me. And I also took a ride up there too after the meeting, not that night, but following week, and checked it out. And I have no doubt that it would be, an improvement to the road and so on. So I don't see any issue with it. I know there was some question on the letter that he sent us about if he could get a better deal with the town pricing at getting material. So that would be a discussion if we want to talk and how we would handle that. So,
We've previously authorized that
On
work,
Downs Road, but we
but work,
never followed through with it.
Right.
but work on class 4 roads, folks could get material under the town's rates. We've already authorized that. So that's,
The only thing that, well, Russ is probably gonna go on.
well, the only thing, I had some concern of like it. So other situations we've had, money comes, like for grass, say it's gravel or stone, it would come out of my budget or our highway budget. And then when we get reimbursed, I didn't want it to not go back into that line item and just go into other revenue income. So then that lowers my stone line and my gravel line and so on. But when Brad and I were talking about it, Sherry did say that what would come in for payment from him would go back into my line item. So I felt better about that.
All right. Yeah, the only thing that concerns me, it's talking a little bit of money here, $27,000.
Yeah.
So I think we had kind of talked about it too, maybe doing it in phases and getting paid for that, because it's gonna go on the town account.
Yeah, we can do an estimate material and just pay it that amount, if that makes sense.
Well, it's just,
I don't know what you mean, or how everything about phases or whatnot, but,
where you're gonna bring in the big stone, the base stone first,
yeah,
right?
right.
So, and fabric, you want to, maybe it makes sense to get a quote on the fabric from Johnson. Would it make sense to get a
Well,
quote?
I think Tristan should get, if he's doing the work, he can get the quotes. We could authorize, I could contact Johnson or whomever to allow the pricing to go, to give him town pricing.
Work with certain people, like J&L Fairfax was the cheapest on fabric I've done
Okay.
2 weeks ago.
But
I
we
don't
don't
know
have
if
an
you're-
account. I don't
if
know.
you're certain.
So we
place.
don't have an account with
Okay.
J&L. We do have some alternatives other than Johnson, but they are an option for sure. And I'd help you, I'd work with you on that too, to, what you're looking for and help you get some pricing and so on.
I guess my main point is I'd hate to see all this work get done and then we have a $27,000 bill at the end. And somehow it would be nice to reimburse that in kind of steps, right?
Yeah, or you can front pay it, right? I mean, we can estimate 3,000 feet at 3 inches of 3-inch base and 2 inches of hot rest or whatever. Calculate that out, pay it in. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah.
We're just so we didn't get such a large amount.
Oh, yeah.
And then we're like,
No, and I don't know what the difference of town rate versus not is.
It's a big difference. So we're tax exempt, you don't pay tax.
Right.
And we also get a cheaper rate.
yes, a week at a less expensive rate. We don't know that for sure,
Right.
but obviously.
I
we
just
can-
don't want to burden the town with the headache of it if it's really not.
Well, it's town road too, so
Yeah.
I think it's a necessary and good partnership.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And any way that we can, and those estimated costs, are that town money or your money? So it might be less than that?
This is my estimate if I pay the whole thing. So it'd be less than that if you're saying,
So it'd probably be quite a bit less than that, which would be a good thing.
which is where I didn't know how much less it is, and then, if it's $1,000 or something, I don't want to.
Well, where
Makes
did you
sense.
get your estimates from for pricing?
Done right trucking would be for the stone, and then J&L for fabric.
So we don't have an account with Ben, right?
Right, so I don't know how you go about who hauls or anything like that, and
Right, I know, it was your intention to get a rough idea of what it would cost.
Right.
yeah.
Mhm.
And if we, have a better price than this to begin with, plus we get the town rate,
Yeah.
it's all good.
I'm not particular who hauls or anything, that's who we work with.
Mhm.
But
Anybody,
in the event you want to go with suppliers that you want to go with, we shouldn't hold you up as long as you're doing the construction according to our highway department specifications. So
Okay,
if you want to go the path to do the pricing through our town context, that's great.
Yep.
If you don't want to have the hassle factor of it, and you just want to do it, then as long as,
Yeah.
again, you're following the plan
Mhm.
that you've mapped out with Russ. I think it's really your choice.
so I'd work with Ross to see if we can
Yeah, 'cause
work
if-
with who you take
Exactly.
to haul and whatnot.
Exactly.
And
well, whoever hauls will need proof of insurance. That's all.
Yeah.
Have to have it.
And for something like this, that's, like you live on the road, but it's a town road and would be for the benefit of the town. I think it would be nice if it works out for you to be able to get stuff at a cheaper price. It really is for the benefit of everybody.
What's our Tetro gravel per ton roughly?
1450. But your price is probably trucked
just
in.
truck
Delivered.
road. I'm looking at
Delivered.
loads we did this
Delivered.
summer. This summer, loads of any size have been around this.
So that's delivered. That's delivered.
So that was just what I was going with. Yeah.
I think we leave it to the person that's gonna do the work.
Yeah.
Mhm.
If we can get you a better deal, great. But
Yeah.
if you don't want to deal with hassle factor, then
As long as the material is up to standard. right?
exactly, as long as it's complying with the highway department
I
requirements.
don't want to, speaking out of turn, but what about the 3-inch stone, that massive pile we got in the pit?
Yeah.
Been there for years,
Right.
I say years, not years, but maybe, I don't know how many yards are there, but there's quite a bit of pile there that maybe we could do something with that. Maybe a discussion we could have, but we may not want to either. We may want to save that for our own.
Super mud season.
Well, that is super mud season, right?
That's
why it's here.
Exactly.
But I work well with Tristan, and I think, together we'll be
Come up with one,
Yeah.
Do we need a motion on this? Fred?
I would say, yes, you authorize the work or allow the work to be done on Downs Road as described in the memo.
I'll make a motion that we authorize work to be done on Downs Road per the memo written in our packet that lays out certain road improvements for a total dollar of $27,462. as long as this work is done in conjunction with our highway department.
And as long as we have insurance from anybody, any subcontractor that's on the road.
And insurance required for any subcontractor. Does that work?
Yeah, sounds good.
I
Is there a
second.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes carry 3-0. Thank you very much for
Thank you.
all your work
Thank
on
you.
this.
Thank you for doing this work.
And going through our hoops and.
Yeah, no problem, it's fine.
Thank you very much.
We have another meeting in 2 weeks. Sean.
Okay, yeah.
They're really fun times.
So I just wanted to say, so that the town highway updates, that was one item. And then these are two different
It
items,
just
but I
doesn't, it
think,
just doesn't look like that. I just was
Okay.
making it clear. I didn't want to be stepping out of bounds here. And no fault to you either, Brad. So one thing I just thought of while I was sitting here, that we had a issue at the garage last week where there was a smell of propane outside. Scott and Ken were doing some work outside. Thought it was coming from the regulator, so Scott shut the propane off, being outside, shut the propane off. We called Course Fuels, they came up, checked it out, and they feel that it's coming from our, it's called a Renew air system that's in the shop. It's the air purifier, dehumidifier system that was installed in 2015, I believe, according to the paperwork I found on it. They feel that it was trying to ignite, but it wasn't, and it was coming out the vent on the outs to the outside. So that's why the smell was on the outside. So I do have Alliance is coming. They're the ones who installed it. They're coming Tuesday to look at that. Don't know what it's going to entail, but just to give you a heads up that that is down at the moment, and hopefully Tuesday it'll be.
So it's an air handling system?
Yeah, it
Just
goes.
exhausts?
No, it goes through the whole shop as part of, to get the moisture out of the building and to purify the air in the building. So it's a big ductwork system, goes right down the whole center of the shop. And propane power.
Counteracts the exhaust that gets in there too.
There is another exhaust system in this building as well, but it just does help purify the air. Just to give you a heads up on that, will be hopefully not a big repair, but
Okay.
they're coming Tuesday.
Okay.
So paving, we could have strike this any better this week.
Yeah, really.
I was thinking that perfect weather for them
Perfect.
to get this done.
So I'm proud to say that the paving is completed on our settlement road. Came out very, very nice. Talked with Tyler Whitcomb after they were done. They're gonna come back next week and do the shoulder work, which is laying gravel on the whole side of the road. And then line striping, he's not sure when that's gonna happen, just because he's at the mercy of the line striping company, and there's one in the state that does it. So
Are either of those things temperature dependent?
I would say the painting
yeah,
one is, yeah,
Probably,
for sure,
yeah.
but the shoulder work will be fine. Next
Okay.
week looks great as well. We got a little taste of snow last, it was earlier this week or whatever it was, losing track. But anyways, mountain was pretty. We did get the trucks ready to go just in case, so they're ready. Other than just gotta put our winter tires on. We didn't want to put those on yet until we hauled in a few more loads of gravel to have stockpile for the winter. And now warm weather is still here. We've continued on road projects. We did a beautiful job up on our settlement, 543 to 549, did a couple culverts and ditch work, came out wonderful. We got some tree cleanup done at Poker Hill and Upper English this week that were left over from some tree storms or wind storms. And last Sunday, we had a little wind event on that Poker Hill side of town. And there was a large maple that came down on Poker Hill. Last place I looked, I'm like, oh, here we got a tree down. So I called Ken, he didn't answer. Scott was not feeling well. So I called Dwayne, he was brush hogging. I said, where are you brush hogging? He said, oh, I'm at Brad's house, which you can almost see from where I was. So Brad and Dwayne came down. Dwayne came down with his tractor. Just for the record, Dwayne did not charge us anything for the use of his tractor or his time to help that day.
yeah, it was
He-
nice.
he,
Oh, that's very nice.
It's really nice.
He wouldn't put it on his time sheet. He says, no, that's fine. So he just so you guys know he did that.
Shout out to Dwayne.
Brad
That's
was-
awesome. And Brad.
And Brad was there as well, helped get it cut
Thank
off and
you.
we got pushed out of the road, so that was good. And today we started doing some ditching and deberming on the mountain road.
Stevensville, bring that up.
Oh, yeah, that's on my list.
Okay, sorry.
No problem. So I did send you all an email back. Stevensville has been completed and graded. We hauled 4 loads of gravel, and the state pitched in for 2 loads of the gravel as a combined
Nice.
Oh, good.
combined effort. Brad, we're working with those guys to get that taken care of. So their residents are very happy up there that that's repaired.
Thank you.
That's
very
great,
much.
yeah.
And grading continues. We've got our settlement left to do and a couple other side roads, do a little bit of touch up before winter. And yeah, we're doing really good. Just continuing to be very proud of the crew and their hard work and dedication. Makes a lot of work get done. So we're making some great progress.
Thank you, and
That's
thank you to
great.
the road crew. Please extend our thanks.
I will.
Thank you.
And that's all I have.
Excellent.
All right.
All right. Let's move on now to Tomasi Meadow Trot. Is Anton here?
Yes.
Hello.
Eaten by the cat.
Not yet.
Yeah, a couple naps, you know. Just a little, yeah. Anton Kelsey, Chair of the Rec Committee. Back a couple of items. One is, we've done a race in Tomasi Meadow for the last few falls, and we'd like to do it again. We've got tentatively scheduled for November 10th. And so we've usually come, we got permission and for you all to do that. And so we're here to do that. We partner with Mansfield Nordic Club. We're the ones who grew them out there. And so it's pitched as a fundraiser for that. The one slight shift that we would like to do is, in the first 2 years we did it, the pay was, we collected the money as the rec committee, and then we would disperse it to Mansfield Nordic, do some of their expenses. And this year we thought, well, we'll be a more supporting role, and they can just collect it directly to them. And then we don't have to worry about, so then that will just go directly to them. It seems like an easier way to manage that. So that's the one small change that we wanted to do.
Good.
That makes sense.
The other change related is, so we have a waiver that the athletes who do it sign, and Mansfield Nordic will have a waiver as well, since they're stepping up a little bit more, so the people have to sign 2 waivers. But other than that, that's how that one goes.
Thanks for the clarity of your write-up.
Any issues in the last 2 times we've had the trot?
Nope,
Been well received?
everything's well received. Usually it's a lot of kids. It's mostly a kid type of thing. But yeah, it's been very fun. And the nice thing is a bunch of local businesses pitch in for raffle prizes and that sort of thing. So
Nice.
it's usually the
Nice.
first one that we're doing. But yeah, it's good energy. And it's been a fun event.
I'll put it on the table. I'll make a motion that we approve the Tomasi Meadow Trot again for this year as proposed in the memo, and we also approve the liability waiver. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Discussion?
You'll have more parking too.
Yes. Very true.
Mhm.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? You guys carry 3-0. Thank you very much, Anton.
You're welcome. Second item is, once the ski season and grooming starts at Tomasi Meadow, we've done a south end parking spot for people to park to help relieve the parking at the north end. Skiers appreciate it. It's a little closer to better spot to put your skis on. So what we've done is just done a 3-month temporary permit for that south end, and I think that's in the memo I put in there that has the spot we've traditionally done it, as well as the rough dimensions. And the road crew manages plowing that once the ground is frozen, and then if it thaws, we close it. So again, seeking permission for a 3-month temporary access permit to have parking down there for the ski season.
All right, I'll put it on the table. I'll make a motion that we authorize the rec committee to pursue the necessary permits for the seasonal south end parking area of Tomasi Meadow. Is there a second?
I will second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
We talked about maybe throwing a couple posts up this year on either side of the curb cut, because we put up sawhorses, sometimes that gets blown down. Or maybe if we put up 2 posts on each side, right? And we're talking maybe
Yeah, 2
chaining it
posts and put a chain
or
up
cable
there, just make it look a little more official.
Mhm.
that is closed.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
It's very clear and there's no confusion.
Yeah, really nice. It would, yeah.
Support that.
You just plowed when it's frozen
It's frozen.
and no sand or salt.
No, we put a little bit of material down 2 years ago, just so it wasn't a big job.
Mhm.
So all that improvement's already been done,
Okay, so
so it's good to go in that regard.
If it gets to a point that we haven't plowed it for some reason, and you have an event, don't hesitate to call or reach out to say, hey,
Yeah.
if you don't, would you mind cleaning it out if need be?
you just use the pickup for that?
And then for putting posts in, how do, what's the best way to make that happen?
We just go, do you want to just use some cedar posts, or do you have some posts over there? Or
Probably just get some 4x4 posts and
yeah, I can get some 4x4s.
we can do it.
Yeah.
So,
The other one I want to do, I actually bought the materials or through the town a couple years ago, never got around to doing, is putting up a sign at the parking lot at Casey's Hill that explains rules and regulations, open, close, and just also has history of the Meadow and some things up there for that. So I'd like to, now that we have the improvements there, I'd like to get that up. It'd be a very similar type of sign that we have at the end by the town garage for,
Kind of like a little kiosk?
yeah, a little kiosk that just has information. I think it would be good to have information up there.
It would be.
But
that
I'd like-
sign was approved at a previous meeting.
Yeah, I got approval to do it, but then the select board wanted specifics of the language I was gonna put on there, and I just never followed through with it. And then right after that, we decided to improve the whole lot, so I held off waiting for that to happen, which is now we're 2 years down the line. So I know there's been approval, but I can come back with specific language I put on there, or you can trust my judgment on what to put on there. Either way, it's fine with me.
But since we're in a new budget period, wouldn't it need to be reauthorized for a new budget? And look at Jen behind you.
mean,
Yeah, I don't know how much the sign cost, but.
Well, I had, in terms of the kiosk material, I already have it. That's all set.
So you have it.
Yeah, because I
Oh,
purchased
okay,
it
okay.
when we did it. I didn't make any signs yet, so the signs, but all the signs
Okay.
would come out of the rec committee budget.
Oh, okay. All right.
So I wouldn't,
So we're good.
I don't think we need approval for that. So I think the only question
Verbiage.
is
It's the verbiage.
the verbiage on there. In the other 2 signs we put up, there was I didn't run anything by this body, however, if you want, that's fine.
So before we go to the signage, let's take action on the motion on the table, which is authorizing filing the permits for the parking. Let's
Yes.
complete that
Okay.
loop because we didn't do that. We held discussion. Is there any further discussion on the permits in the parking area?
No.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Right.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nice, carry 3-0. A signage, will you come back with a,
I can, it's up to, I can certainly come and say, here's what we'll put on it.
I think it makes sense to do that, just so we have a look at it,
Mhm.
if we asked before.
Yeah,
That's
I don't
right.
remember
Yeah, I think it
asking
was Bob
for
who
it
wanted
before. I
to see it.
personally don't have a need.
But since it was asked before, why don't you come back and just say, this is what we're proposing?
No problem.
We don't want to micromanage it, but since it was asked before, we should probably follow through. Thank you very much, Anta, for all your work.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And that's a great idea to have there. I think that would look nice and I
Yeah.
think would help some of the folks to have a reminder of what is and is not.
Yeah, just when it's open and closed, all those things that I think are helpful and, parking removed and all those things are
Yeah.
important, so.
Might be a place where you put dog bags on it, just as a reminder for folks if,
Yep.
All
All right,
right.
thanks, folks.
Thank you,
Thank
Anta.
you.
See you.
All right, good catch.
Okay, finance officer updates. Yeah, it's budget season.
Okay. The first thing I wanted to talk to the select board about, and you can pretend that I'm Roger Fry. No, I'm kidding. I met with Roger several weeks ago, and we were talking about a couple of big trees that are behind the Historical Society. There was 3 humongous poplar trees. One came down in the January storm and just missed the Historical Society building by like less than 25
Shocking
feet.
how close that was.
So I said to Roger, right, he was talking about it, how worried they were, and he said, I want to come and I want to put that in the budget for fiscal year 26. I said, so you want to wait a whole nother winter and then we're going to wait and we're going to cross our fingers and nothing happens? I said, I think it would be better if we go to the select board and ask to do it this year. So he went and we got 3 quotes, which I included in your packet. We are basically requesting that the select board approve and authorize us to hire, the town to hire, I forget who it was. Save a Tree, $1,525 to take down and remove those 2 giant poplars, as well as several other smaller ones that are in the way. And to do that before this winter. So.
Very reasonable.
Whose budget would that come out of?
It will,
Yucky.
well, I will post it to the Historical Society, so it
It's
will,
from their budget.
it will go over, they will go over budget. But what I said to Roger is, because we've had the ARPA funds,
That's great.
because we have $344,000 of ARPA funds in our checking account and our account, our interest this year is much higher than we budgeted. So I think it would be in keeping with the town to preserve the safety of our building from a catastrophic tree falling through the roof and what that would cost us, to splurge on $1,500 and get the trees gone.
Money well spent.
So that
The,
is the request.
The quote that's in our packet, all the others talk about removal of debris, or removal of the trees and the limbs. Does this
Yes,
include removal?
includes everything.
Okay.
Yes. And the reason that Roger, I asked him, I said, well, I see which one's least expensive. Which one would you like me to request, from the board? And he said that the gentleman from Save a Tree was the first one to respond, and actually called him, and they actually had a dialogue back and forth. And he felt that that's who he would choose to go with. So. And he couldn't be here tonight because he's emceeing a Historical Society event at the library that happened at the same time as our meeting. So.
All right, I'll make a motion that we approve the quote from Save a Tree to take down trees at the Historical Society building in the amount of $1,525 with the funds coming from interest accrued from our ARPA dollars.
Correct.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes carry 3-0.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention.
And I will make a transfer form that I'll leave in the select board box for someone to sign, maybe Patty, since you were chairing the meeting tonight. Number 1. Number 2 is ARPA resolution. Also in your packet, I detailed, we had talked about this at the last select board meeting, and there were some questions that came up, and so I went back and spoke again to get more clarity and clarification on how this all works. But just as a quick reminder, we needed to do something in order to quote unquote obligate the funds by the end of calendar year 2024. And it was while working on the audit with our auditors, and Rick Brigham, who's our accountant who I'm working with, said, here's what you need to do. And I said, I haven't heard anything about this. He said, call Vermont League of Cities and Towns and talk to them, and they'll explain what you need to do. We had originally thought that, the select board said we're going to do these projects. We have our chart. So as long as we have our chart and we have this plan and then those funds are obligated. But what we learned is that they're not obligated unless we have a written contract to spend those funds. So we're going to do this little shell game where my recommendation is, and Vermont League of Cities and Town and Fred from Sullivan and Powers and Company recommends that we sign this resolution, which basically says that we've obligated the funds to cover these expenses. And what that does is it then takes the funds, it's an accounting game, it takes the funds out of this ARPA area and puts them into the general fund. Then it creates a surplus. We will then take that surplus and we will put it into the budget for next year, fiscal year 26, and show the revenue as the surplus and the expense as those expenses that we're going to spend them on, which is, I have it down as the sidewalk and the town hall.
Elevation.
Mhm.
But that can, the board can make a decision to change how
Fungible
that
ones
gets
is there,
allocated
yeah.
at the time, but that's what we would put it in the budget as.
Mhm.
And that would be separately delineated in the.
It'll be it'll be in the budget.
I mean, not, it will be a separate.
It'll show
Kind of
surplus,
paragraph.
it'll be in the budget as an accounting line.
Okay.
And I will explain it when, if it gets approved, if the budget gets approved by you to then go to the voters, I always do a cover letter that explains
Right.
every line item, and in that line item, it would say surplus fund use, ARPA funds, and then under expense, it would say ARPA funds. So it's a net wash, expense, revenue and expense.
Mhm.
So it doesn't cost the taxpayers any money. This is just a way for us to
Right.
effectively use the funds so that we don't have to ever give them back to the federal government.
This is what, we talked about this like way, way back, right? Remember that that video we were in with, and I think it was somebody from Sullivan and Trot, where the guy came up with the idea.
To expend all the money. Right.
Yes, this is a one-time.
Yeah, you're one time, but it was our understanding that since we took that one time, which we did, and we already signed that resolution, I thought that was all we needed to do. But now, here we're getting to the end, like, oh, no, you also have to have either a contract to spend these funds specifically, or you have to do this.
Okay.
So,
And we'll have that, part of that with the sidewalk. We'll have spent the money on surveying, we'll have a contract for engineering, so that'll be, we'll.
some of it'll be
Some
spent.
of it'll be
That'll be
spent.
good.
And we have quotes for some of the.
Yeah, we
So
just-
things like solar and sidewalk, they will be noted verbally on there.
Mhm.
That'll be good for people to see.
It won't be on the resolution.
Right.
It'll be specifically in the budget.
Okay.
Yeah.
That'll be a good thing.
So,
Right, I'll make are you good?
yeah, so what we need is for the board to approve that.
I make a motion that we approve resolution 24-001, which is a resolution for American Rescue Plan Act ARPA allocation. It's in our board packet. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
All right.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes carried 3-0.
Excellent.
Thank you.
I will have to print up a clean one.
I have one here, it just has a staple mark in it.
Okay, well, no, I can print up a clean one and put a logo on it too, if you want.
Okay, but they're all here, you get it, everybody, oh, not everybody's here to
Yeah,
sign it anyway.
yeah.
so.
I mean, we can sign it at the next.
We
meeting.
can sign it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Thank you for writing that down.
I'd rather print it up with the logo and all.
We like cute resolutions.
Thank you. All right, so, then, the next thing is the budget process. So part of why I wanted to bring it up now is because, largely for the benefit of Maureen and Dan, who have never been through our budget process before. And my goal is to make it as seamless and easy and almost fun, because it's a way for us to like look at the past, remember all the projects we completed in prior years, and think about how we're going to spend the money and keep the budget, as trim as possible. And next year, I really think is going to be a really easy year. Why do I say that? There's not a lot of ambiguity. The only thing that I think is our big question is whether or not we're going to do the bond and that project. And I think we can. That's just
For the bridge?
for the
That
bridge.
doesn't really affect the budget.
And that doesn't really affect the budget, So I don't think there's not a lot of heavy lifting for next year. Things look pretty even keeled. I don't think there's any surprises. The capital group that met, which started off with more members than it ended with, because it started with 5 and ended with 3. But I think the 3 of us, with also some assistance from Brad and Sherry, we were able to really hone in on what the capital expenditures for next year are going to need to be in the budget. And rather than go over any findings, my plan is to just put those things, there aren't any surprises, in that first round budget. So what we're going to do, and the way that it works, I gave you the copy of kind of our planning sheet and the dates. Everyone will get, every department will get this sheet by next week. You'll all have, every department will have a sheet. This is the select boards. You don't get it yet, but will have several years of historical actuals for you to look back at.
Mm-hmm.
And then it will have budgets and actuals. And then it will have this year's budget and then a blank space for next year's budget. So some of those lines might be filled in by me just because there's not things that you necessarily may not be aware of. And then I will take all of these after they're filled out by all the departments, and those will become our version 1 budget, which we will go over in the open session. I'm hoping on the 14th would be our first, would be when I'd have the first draft done. That doesn't mean all the lines are going to be filled out, but it's going to get us started. And we're going to go through that. And what will be helpful is at that meeting, we'll probably be able to really just knock some off, and they won't ever need to be discussed again, because they're things that have no, there's no ambiguity at all. They're black and white. And so all the departments will have that next week. So you'll have 2 weeks to get the numbers back to me, basically. The one thing that I do want to remind the board is that typically we have executive sessions to discuss salaries and benefits and things like that. Typically what I do to start out with is I will put in a proposed salary sheet, which will be all of the employees. And then it will have what our, the cost of living increases. So
When does that come out?
it's out.
Oh,
Those are out already.
oh, really?
Yeah.
25%.
No. So,
Feels like
Social Security went up that much?
I did have it here. Hold on. Where's
it's
my
like 3.5.
It's
3.
2.5 for the federal Social Security, and New England is 3.8, I think, were the two. So I'll do those.
2.5.
And then the board has to discuss if they want to adjust any salaries or that kind of stuff. And then that would get integrated into the budget. But I just want to encourage you guys to start thinking about that, because that's something that I can't do. So I'll get you the information before the next meeting, and I will send it to you in email, and then you will have those spreadsheets to discuss amongst you.
When will we have a health insurance contract?
I am meeting with them this week. I asked Brad to put that on for the 14th. So, but it looks to me like it's the recommendation that I'm going to be coming to you with is going to be to switch to MVP, because the increases are double digit for both, but it was a significantly less if we switched to MVP. But I don't have all the final numbers. So I will, for the next board meeting, have the medical. And then once we have that number, that'll get plugged in as well. So.
And then, so appropriations have been kind of slowly coming in. Those are all the social programs we support. Essex Rescue is kind of included in the end here.
Yeah.
We can talk about that quick, but we've got the Mills River Park came in. So typically, like some of these larger groups, they will actually come to us and give a presentation, like maybe Essex Rescue or Libby with the Mills River Park. Certainly the fire department, that's the big one. So we typically have done before, we've had one person and myself go to Jericho, and they kind of lay out the budget there. We could bring 2 this time.
Exactly.
And then the 2 select board members come back give feedback to our group. They do the same over there,
Mhm.
and then we have a joint meeting. So Jericho and Underhill has a joint meeting to not approve the budget, but to accept the budget.
For Mills Riverside and the fire
No,
department?
no,
Or
just for the
just the
fire
fire department? Okay,
It's kind of in a contract that we have.
its own thing.
For the other appropriations, generally, we just renew them unless they are an increase of,
Or $3 or $500 or $300.
yeah, if they don't, if it's not a significant increase, then we just reapprove them.
Okay.
So
And obviously, if a new appropriation came in, if some organization that we haven't supported in the past came in, then that's obviously something that Brad or I would say you need to come to the select board. I mean, we're not gonna just,
So it would be an article.
it would be an article.
Yeah, if it was a new
the first time.
yeah.
So yeah, all these past appropriations have
They're
been
all-
approved by the voters to
And I'll also hopefully have a surplus number, not the ARPA one, but the regular surplus number for us too, for the next meeting, which also then the next, again, like how I said, budgeting can be exciting. It'll be up to you to recommend how the town should use that surplus. Typically, it's a discussion that we all have together, but the board is the one who has to put the article to the voters as to how we want to spend it. Typically, if we have a surplus, again, if there's projects like maybe the generator, the solar thing, if that was something, or typically we would, if not, we would put it into reserves, or some could go into highway reserve, some could go into general reserve, or some could be used to reduce taxes for that year, which is also a popular one, especially with the increases that we are seeing in things we can't control, like the education tax, which is really what has been driving our tax, the tax increases in the town of Underhill. It's not our municipal budget, it's not our highway budget, it's not our road infrastructure, it's education. So it could be used to help offset taxes also. So those are just things to consider, since we don't know what that number is. But that's the fun of being on the select board, you get to come up with those articles. So that's all I have, but get ready to see some emails with spreadsheets and numbers for you to start looking at.
Will you just give us a heads up that there's an email in our town
Absolutely.
inbox that we
Yes.
should go look at?
I will
'Cause-
text you if there is.
Sweet. 'Cause
All
I'll
of you.
look at it all the time.
Yes.
You should.
And then I threw the Essex rescue thing in.
Oh, yeah.
I've since gotten a budget from them. But I laid out I just kind of scribbled some notes there. They're kind of raising a little bit of stink about our population number. So the 3129 was as of the 2020 census. And Colleen asked if we keep track of growth. And we really don't. We've never done that here. But however, towns, I guess, that are over 5,000 in population do. So like Essex, Jericho do, I suppose.
Yeah.
So, but I found it'd be a pretty difficult number to get your head wrapped around, because I don't know if someone's living at your home or if you've left for on sabbatical or something. We know the number of registered voters.
And we know who died and who's
We
born.
know who died and who was born, and how many new houses are built with a certain amount of bedrooms, but I don't know if those bedrooms are filled. So she's kind of saying that, and she's probably going to bring this up if she came. I would advise, and I think Bob would too, because Bob and I are the kind of liaison between Essex Rescue. I think it would be a good idea to have her come to a meeting
I think that's a good idea.
and just tell us where they're at. I will include some, maybe not next meeting, but the one after that. We should talk about schedule too. Don't let me forget that, because we've got some, anyway, so but it doesn't look like, it looks like a 3% increase of 5.5%, which basically is, it's like $1 $1.02 per capita, so
Mhm.
equated to like $3,200 increase.
But you will invite her to come in.
Yeah, we'll figure out some schedules here. So that's it. So we're right back on schedule. Exactly.
Okay.
Tried to talk fast.
Be good.
All right, so next item on our agenda is review and consider estimates for improvements to the Underhill Center Post Office.
So we budgeted money last fiscal year to do some improvements to the post office. So Jerry, that's the postmaster over there, the floor is kind of sunk. His chair rolls back into the floor. He was kind of concerned with some of the structural integrity of some of the joists in the basement. So I got two quotes, one from Nexus, who is Seth Friedman, and one from Pete Saja. And they're almost identical.
Seriously, I couldn't get any closer.
They didn't talk, I didn't show anyone,
That is
anybody or
crazy.
anything. So the idea is to go into the basement and just do a little shoring up of the floor joists and the hangers and maybe a couple more supports. So it's kind of like a day's work down there, and they've broken it down. And then upstairs, we can't really solve the floor leveling problem. You can't just jack the floor.
Right.
There's bearing walls and stuff in the way. So the idea was to build a raised platform where Jerry's desk could sit. With 7-inch step. So it'd be a full step up to the desk.
Mhm.
So we've got a plan there, and that would be to do these two things. I could just say that I respect both of these contractors equally. I think you would have an excellent job either way. Peter seemed to be available a little bit earlier than Nexus, but not by much. Hang on a minute, let me just review that. Hang on a second. So about 2 weeks for Pete Saja, and Nexus was like closer to mid-December. So of course, this also is contingent on Jerry's schedule because postmaster needs to be there. We might try to tag it up with maybe a Saturday where he could, he's usually open in the morning and then he could stay for the rest of the day. So it's a little bit of schedule. It's kind of a hassle, a little bit of a hassle job. But anyway, I don't have a preference. I like I said, I have both respect for both these folks.
They're both insured.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Just trying to see, is there any differentiation?
There's no differentiation.
$25
The only difference is like I said, is Peter could get there a little sooner than Nexus. But you never know what happens with schedules, and you could flip a coin. I don't know.
They work together.
This giant project. Could 3 people fit inside the post
Not enough
office?
parking there.
So it's literally,
Exactly.
so just for the record, Pete Saja's was $1,650 and Nexus was $1,675.
That's so funny.
It is funny.
Incredible.
It was
Yeah.
pretty incredible.
Funny for you,
Right.
you're not doing the vote.
I think we should just go with the cheapest. It's only $25, but it's
And you can
It's
also
also
start
earliest.
sooner. So
the earliest and the least expensive.
Yeah.
And it is a thumb coin, toss of a.
Like I said,
coin.
either one of them, I think
Yeah.
highly of both.
Agreed.
Yeah.
But I think if we were to make a choice, that would be.
I know
how-
this
how we can
is
make it.
somewhat unrelated, but on the topic of the post office, I think might be worth revisiting when we come with a solution to power washing town hall, that the post office could also use
It needs a paint
a
job.
power wash,
It
okay,
needs
a
a
paint
paint
job. And the moss growing on the roof is also
Yeah.
a
So those are budget,
concern,
we could
but
put
those
those
are-
in the budget.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think the Underhill post office could use a little bit of a glow up.
I think
Those
we're
are
gonna,
both things that should.
not to get
Okay.
off topic too much, but I think you want to be really careful pressure washing these old buildings.
Right, and with the lead concern.
And I think just, or introducing moisture, I
Yeah.
think a good paint job might go along.
Should do that. Okay.
So, anyway,
So we need a motion.
for
Yes.
budget.
Just
And then
taking
separate
notes for
funding.
budget stuff.
Yeah, me too.
I'm like, I've got a running
No,
list.
it's been on my mind too, so.
Yeah,
Needs a
Okay.
little love and care.
it does.
So the difficult decision was to go by price and who
Mhm.
could do it first. So I make a motion that we approve Pete Saja's proposal for carpentry with integrity in the amount of $1,650 for the post office work. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? It's about where they were so close.
I'd just like to thank them both for taking the time to come over and look at it. They both
Exactly.
spent the
Yes.
time.
Thank,
Especially two
yes.
carpenters from Underhill.
yes,
Appreciate
exactly.
that they're willing to do
Both
it.
from Underhill, that should be recognized. Wish we can give it to both of them. We can't. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes carry 3-0.
You know, the other thing I'm just thinking about is when we had that windstorm, there was also a big tree that just barely missed the post office.
Yes.
Hmm.
And I don't know how far back our property goes behind the post office, but if there's,
It came from Kale's next door.
It did,
So
okay.
it came through there and Russ helped. We brought the loader down once and just got it to the ground.
Mhm.
And then Kale paid to get it all cleaned up. So
Okay.
everything's cleaned up there now.
there's not any other ones that are
No.
like the ones around the
No,
historical
yeah.
society.
No.
Okay.
Which say,
I'm full of tangents tonight.
ah,
We're doing okay on time though. We're close.
Okay, we are very close. Let's go to the MMCTV proposed webcam.
Yep, so we're back at the webcam, and this is the view
It's
of
the
the webcam.
We need to take down some trees.
No, I know, so I talked to Diff about
Just
that.
let the winds come in.
Um,
Don't flatten
Are
them.
those our trees?
No,
No,
they're
they're Diff's.
Diff's trees, but maybe those first couple. And the picture may get just oriented a little bit further to the north, but there'd be no houses, no roads, no people. You're not gonna be able to zoom in and see somebody on Sunset Ridge.
Somebody's climbing one of those trees.
Well, that's,
Would be worth watching.
and then here's me holding it up, trying not to get in the camera's view, but that's what it's gonna look like. It's just a little eyeball.
Glad he didn't catch the cable there or the electric. wire
That's
coming.
Comcast.
I'm-
Right.
Safety thing,
You know the
Gary's on
difference.
this extension ladder 20 feet up. All right, I'll make a motion that we authorize MMCTV to use this camera to take a shot of Mount Mansfield based on the view that we've seen, as long as it doesn't have any viewing of roads, houses, people.
I second.
Awesome.
And
Let me ask this, any
No cost.
discussion? All right, no, that's right, you have to second
Yeah,
it.
there's no
Now-
cost to the town. This is their,
Oh, thank you, it's no cost to the
no
town.
cost to the town. And they can put notifications, sorry to interrupt your motion, but they can put notifications underneath it. So if we wanted to say road closed or heavy snow in Underhill today or something like that. you
It's
know.
alive, it's because it's alive. But
Live.
Mm.
Excellent. Any discussion?
Jennifer's birthday.
Right.
Nice. Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes carry 3-0.
So,
It would be Jennifer and Dwayne's birthday.
same day. So Patty, you have,
Okay, so we're on to planning and zoning position update. So I've been doing some back, after our last meeting, I volunteered to be the point person to step in and take a look at the planning and zoning position. I've talked to Brad quite a few times about the position. Jennifer and I have talked, and we met with Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission and went through the proposal that we wanted to put to them, and they are receptive. And what we talked about was rather than partnering with the town of Bolton, that we actually partnered with a smaller town, St. George, who's also looking for zoning and planning assistance. So that would free up more time for this fictitious person, because there's not a person available yet, they'd have to hire. It would free up more time to have that person spend here in the town with smaller amount of time to St. George, because St. George is so small, they'd be looking at 4 to 5 hours of time. So what we discussed with the Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission was 2, maybe 3 days for zoning work, and then another day for planning work. So we're talking about 4 days, maybe more, of zoning and planning work. And we don't know the long term, how much time it would take, but certainly initially, there would be, Underhill would consume a fair amount of time just to get the person up to speed. And then after, if this concept worked out, then we could really assess after time how much time they actually would need to spend here. But we're looking at least 4 days, maybe more, of this person getting up to speed. And again, it's a fictitious, this is fictitious at this point. Charlie Baker from the Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission is going to talk to St. George. And then once they have a conversation with St. George and if they agree to this, they'll come back to us with a suggestion of a contract. And they have a draft kind of position description based on another regional planning commission that's doing this in the Northwest in Meadow County. So it looks like it's a go, potentially. But we have to hear back from the Chittenden County folks, Regional Planning Commission, and we'll know more at that point. And they said the earliest that they could get somebody is likely January 1st. So
Are they doing some legwork then in the hiring process?
So once they have a chat with St. George officials, then they would actually go out and hire them.
So the person would be an
position.
employee of the regional. planning
Exactly. They would not be our employee. We would contract with the Chittenden County Regional Planning
Okay,
Commission.
so we would pay them. That would
Exactly.
be a line item in our budget
Exactly.
to pay them for this service.
Right.
And they would be responsible for supervision of this person.
No, well,
With
yes.
input, a large amount of input from us.
Yeah.
But we would look to, the training would be done in-house here. Really, Brad would be the person
Yeah,
to
because
step
they-
in for training.
They don't know the intricacies of a specific town,
Exactly.
but they would do, some management of the employee.
Ultimately, they're the employer, but they would lean on us for feedback and how it's going.
Yeah.
But we would provide training relative to our regulations of zoning.
But all the salary and benefits would go through.
Exactly, for the Regional Planning Commission.
And we did discuss what our budget for that, position was. And I also supplied them, they asked, they liked the job description as a starting point for them. So I sent that to them, so they've got that to work with also.
And I did talk with Brian at the Planning Commission, and I'm really cognizant of the fact that he's got a giant backlog of work. So I think really for the first 6 months to a year, we're going to consume this person. Like they're going to be here more. It's a full-time position is what I really feel initially. And whether it could become less of a full-time position, who knows? And it depends on the person, depends on the Planning Commission's workload. But I think, and I've talked to a couple of former zoning administrators for the town, and everyone that I've talked to so far that's done the job has said it's a full-time position plus. So.
Weren't we talking also about getting somebody local?
That was one thought, is maybe perhaps in the short term, and it could go long term, but find someone local here that can staff the planning commission.
Get them at least.
Get them at
moving.
least some support. So somebody is like trying to go through the regs and take their write-ups and try to get a good draft going of the changes to the regs. So it would be, and maybe not, they meet twice a month, which they have to by statute. But I think, maybe not by statute, but I believe they have to meet twice a month. At least.
Brian, I talked to Brian about that specific question. That could, if they have to meet twice a month, could they meet once with a staff person and then once without, and let the staff person get up to the workload?
But if we hired this separate person just for the time being, because the problem has always been, and you can, with Andrew or Kale, you talk to, doing all three of those things is too much.
Yeah,
all the
I
night
would want
meetings.
to,
So
this
the-
new person that we're trying to get into gear,
Yeah,
I would want to have them focus on that because I think the planning thing could be a local person who
I do too, and I think
who has some interest and has some knowledge.
good computer skills.
Brad and I talked about maybe being able to find someone local,
Yeah.
part-time, just for that. Like, keep focusing,
Yeah, yeah.
keep the
Yeah.
CCRPC on the other thing.
Mhm.
But in the meantime, how can we get someone, maybe someone local, maybe, someone who left the workforce because they had a family, or maybe someone who's retired, but they don't really want to be retired because, that there's somebody out there in our community, maybe someone who just moved here, who wants to do this.
And this position would be, what,
It's a
like
separate
10
thing.
hours a week? Like what?
I was thinking anywhere, maybe, I was thinking 16, maybe 20 on the high side, but 16 hours a month, maybe.
Okay.
Oh,
I'm saying a month, yeah.
Oh,
So they could come to one planning commission meeting, or maybe they'll be interested, if they're local, want to come to both,
Mhm.
right? And then, but in the meantime, they could be doing assignments and keeping
To
like,
help get them up to speed.
Is
Yeah.
there a way that we could advertise for that?
I have some, we could,
All we would need is the select board to authorize us to put together a job description and then
Yeah.
start to try and fill that position.
and call it a part-time temporary,
Part-time, temporary,
Mhm.
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 What is
I
it?
think that
which
that would
may
be-
work into something.
and then part-time,
We might be
temporary,
able to do that quicker. than
right.
the C-
Well, that's the point, because
CCRPC.
CCRPC says that they're talking
January
January.
1st at earliest.
What would you call the position?
It'd be like,
Planning planning
assistant,
assistant?
land planning assistant or something, yeah, land planning assistant.
Do we have budget to?
Mhm.
Yes, you
Yeah,
have.
it wouldn't
We've got,
necessarily.
Okay,
Yeah.
there's a full-time
Yeah.
salary.
there's a full-time
That's great.
salary,
That's
and we
have
do
it.
6,000.
Right, right, okay.
So,
I could support trying that and see if we get any bites.
Just
Know
to-
what you
I
guys
think
think.
that would be good.
Yeah.
There may be some energetic, interesting
Exactly.
person who, has an interest in planning and wants to learn.
And we
what
could
needs
advertise
to be
it right away
Mhm.
in Front Porch Forum.
Yeah.
I think a yes and approach here for.
Let's make a
needing to
motion
make
and
progress,
make
yeah.
Just to get-
progress on this. I'm gonna
Yeah.
make a motion.
Yep.
That we approve a part-time temporary position for a land planning assistant for the planning commission.
yeah, and just no promises. This is like, hey, we need some help, and why don't you just come and try and see if you like it?
Is that a
See if it
motion?
works for us.
Yes, that was a
I
motion.
second.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Discussion?
Yes.
I think it's a great idea.
Salary rates, do we want to propose something for a salary range for
Let's
something like this?
approve this
Let's
first and then we can
approve
talk
Okay.
details. So any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Ayes carried 3-0. Right, position has been approved. Can you make a proposal for salary?
I
Think
can
about it
look
and-
in I have
Okay.
the circular, which shows what
Mhm.
part-time planning assistants are making statewide, and
Mhm.
That'd be good.
is this something that you want us to come to you with a job description and a plan for the next meeting, or how do you want
Do you
to?
have time for that? Do you have time to fit that in with budget work?
Oh, yeah,
We can do it.
Yeah.
Let's make it,
That'd be good. It'd be
Yeah.
good for the other two to be a part of this.
Yeah.
exactly.
so Brad and I will put together something to present
I
to you
don't think
guys
they would have
at the next meeting.
Perfect.
any objection to jumping on this.
Mhm.
Right, I don't think so either, but let's see.
But
We need
It
to
will
do
be-
it anyway, so.
Yeah.
We'll be ready, and, we'll be ready for next meeting. We'll have what we're gonna post on Front Porch
Proposed
Forum.
rate, proposed job
Rate.
description, proposed ad.
Yeah.
That would be great.
Okay,
And we
Yeah.
can put the feelers out a little bit too, if we know of anybody, just say, hey, we're thinking about this.
then we could, if this is a go, we could adjust the job description that we've already sent to.
And then if the CCRPC person comes in, all they have to do is concentrate on zoning and DRB.
Exactly.
That's enough. That's one full-time
Exactly.
position right
And I
there.
think that still is gonna be a tremendous workload
Yeah, it
to
is.
get them up to speed.
Yeah.
And then if it does come, let's say they're quick study, they only need 2 to 3 days, And that frees that person to go to other towns that need help. And
Fine.
Charlie Baker and Taylor said that they are finding other towns are in the same predicament. So it's likely that this is going to be something that they can really jump on and use.
Yeah,
So we'll
that
have
sounds like
to,
a great.
I think so too.
so this will have to go through our process, because I'm on the board of directors at CCRPC, so this is all new. The board, the rest of the board doesn't know about this yet.
Exactly.
So it'll have to be presented, it'll have to be a new position
Yep.
filled.
Yeah, I think it's exciting for them too,
I do too.
you
It
know,
is.
being involved in town.
Well, it's, if you looked at 7 days, I think it was it Ottaquiche? There's a lot of talk, there's been this, not to go off on a tangent, but there's always been this battle with regional planning and then keeping the independence of the town. The independence of the town, there's always a fear like, oh, the regional planning is going to swoop up and control all the towns, and that part of that may be true, but we may be heading more to a county level type governance someday. But I just think that there's more resources at the county level than there are at the municipal level.
Exactly. That makes sense. Okay, closing public comment. Is there anybody from the public? Anybody online? All right, hearing none, end of closing public comment. Right,
Pen works.
10 minutes ahead of schedule.
so we'll eat that after the executive session.
That's true.
All right, we have payroll warrants to approve. Make a motion to approve payroll warrants for the period October 24th, 2024. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes carry 3-0. Make a motion to approve AP warrants
Bless you.
for 10/24/2024. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right,
Any opposed? Ayes carry 3-0. Make a motion that we approve the select board minutes for October 10th, 2024. All board members were in attendance. Is there a second?
I will second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Ayes carry 3-0. Does Bob sign this one? Brad,
Yes, sign that, it's fine.
I do or Bob?
You do. I just did it today.
Okay, pass that over to Brad. Okay. All right, I'm gonna make a motion that we move into executive
Do
session.
you want to
Oh,
finish?
wait,
with
there's
this?
schedule.
Sorry.
Yes, but your member items are first. I don't know if you guys have any.
member items.
Oh, sorry, member items. Are there any member items? Correspondence, announcements.
I stuck just an update from Libby about Mills Riverside Park and the doggy doings
Doggy
of
doing.
the park.
Doggy doings.
So good.
And
Good
then,
summer.
so it sounded like it was good. She gave a good update here and provided some of the rules. So that was included. What else did I include? I think that was it as far as correspondence. If you wanted to just talk about schedule quickly, so we're on task for November 7th for the sidewalk meeting, 7 p.m.
Sure, that's on the calendars.
What time?
7 p.m.
Okay, that's part of our meeting.
No, this is a special, this is just for sidewalk presentation.
Okay.
It's the final,
So that's right,
final,
that's the first Thursday.
right, it's the final presentation to the select board
Seven.
for your approval.
You said 7 p.m., correct?
7 PM,
Got
yeah, because you had a PTA thing or something.
PTO meeting, yes.
PTO, sorry.
And are we scheduling,
And then our next meeting is November 14th, which we wanted to have the town garage, I
Mhm.
think, right?
It sounds like it's gonna be too much of a meeting to probably do that, doesn't it?
Why is
It
that?
seems to get a lot going on in that meeting, if you didn't want to do it that day.
Oh,
But that's up to you folks.
I don't care, as long as we got a big table.
exactly?
Mhm.
yeah, maybe we can
Do
go.
we
Bring
have
this.
the enough AV?
We'll bring that thing. You've got Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
We'll bring this, we'll bring a couple of our tables from upstairs.
Good.
I'm
And I might
We're
bake
happy to have
something.
Yes.
Ah.
Oh, excellent. In that case, we're definitely going to the
Yeah.
town.
The road crew's got a Blackstone, we're gonna have, Scott wanted to do hibachi and said, I want to fling a shrimp to the end.
So anyway,
Just kidding.
but otherwise, I did want to bring this up, and I know we've got two other folks to consider, but so after the 14th, our next regular scheduled meeting would be Thanksgiving.
Oh, right.
So we always conflict with that. So I propose seeing out budget season. I know it's kind of a drag to have 3 meetings in a row, but I would suggest doing the 21st. Don't you agree, Jennifer?
Yes.
I can make that happen.
There's a potential conflict with the Underhill Central Schools doing their lantern walk that night. I don't know what time it is, but I think it's going to be probably at 5. It'll be dark pretty early. So I think I should probably be okay with that.
Okay. Yeah, it's gonna be dark super early because the clocks will be,
Time's changing
Oh my
worse.
God.
be very, very dark.
Oh, it gets worse.
Okay. Then yeah, I think that would
So
probably be
that's
okay.
just, I'll throw it out to everybody else, but I'm kind of thinking that we'll plan on meeting every Thursday, or not every Thursday, but
The 7th, 14th, and 21st.
3 consecutive Thursdays in November. And then we'll take a break for Thanksgiving, come back and have one on the 12th. So you have a 2-week break.
Depending on how things go, we may need to do one
We
before
may
that.
need to know.
I mean, depending on how the budget's going, but I think it's gonna be a piece of cake.
I had one question schedule-wise, if there's anything that we needed to do or be in support of town as we're getting ready for the election, if there's any other stuff that the select board can do or needs to do before the election.
You know, just ask Sherry if what help she needs, I guess.
Okay.
You're all on the board of civil authority, so.
She probably will have a meeting next week, right?
On the 30th,
We had
I
one
think.
today, we had one today.
They're
and
doing
I
every
just one next
Thursday. They're counting, they're doing the preliminaries. I think they did over 800.
They had a DCA meeting? When?
Today.
They're opening and doing meetings in the mornings every Thursday.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
But yeah, good, best to reach out to Sherry and see what she needs.
She would like this, the support anyway, even if she doesn't need any help.
Okay, anything else
Grateful for her
before
work.
we go to executive session?
I don't think so.
All right, I'm gonna make a motion that we move to executive session, so we can receive confidential attorney-client communication made for the purposes of providing professional legal services to the select board. This is per VSA Title I, Section 313, paragraph A1F. Is there a second?
I will second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
All right.
Aye. Any opposed? Ayes carry 3-0.
All right, thanks, everyone.